on an all-new Dr. Phil.
Her daughter's body was discovered in a drain pipe. How did they explain that this body could be 60 feet from her car and not be found for 2.5 years?
She would have to crawl down here and while balancing herself on a ladder, pull this back over. I'm actually going to crawl down in there. She would have had to have been all the way in the pipe.
What is the most compelling piece of new evidence you've uncovered?
There is absolutely no way she could have gotten down there by herself.
Somebody was there. Somebody knows something.
The exclusive interview with one of the last people to see her alive.
When did she come over to see you?
Right after the party.
The 2015 disappearance of 18-year-old Ebby Steppach made headlines across the nation. About 1.5 years later, her mother, Lori, reached out to me to raise awareness to the case.
Police need your help locating a missing teen. The last time anyone heard from 18-year-old Ebby Steppach was October 25th.
Do you believe your daughter is alive today?
No.
Until we find a body, until someone confirms that she's deceased, I'm going to remain hopeful that we will find her.
A couple days before Ebby was reported missing, she went to a party.
Ebby texted me that she needed to speak to me about something important.
She doesn't show up to meet you.
I sent her a text message to let her know that I was on my way, and she never responded.
Then her brother, Trevor, calls her. She doesn't answer, but she calls him right back, correct?
That is correct.
Trevor asked her where she was. She knew she was with her car. At that point, Trevor told me that Ebby sounded really messed up, disoriented. He'd never heard her sound like that before.
That was the last phone call with her.
Yes. 5 days after Ebby disappeared, her car was found in a park approximately 3 miles from our house. All of her things were in the car. Her purse, her makeup was thrown around the car. She was a makeup artist. She would have never left her makeup. I knew instantly someone had taken her.
You're frustrated here because you think law enforcement made a lot of mistakes.
I believe we would know where our daughter is had they not mishandled her case.
According to Ebby's parents, these are the things they think were done wrong. Park security guard was to alert the police about an abandoned car, but the police didn't follow up for 3 days. Police did not review all Walmart security footage 1 mile from the park. The police did not formally interview all the boys accused by Ebby of being involved in this sexual assault before. It's been over 1 year since we spoke with Ebby's mother, Lori. Now, sadly, her worst fears were realized.
Breaking just into the THV 11 newsroom, Little Rock police confirm the remains found in Shalamont Park yesterday are those of Ebby Steppach. Police had said that the remains were skeletal and that the pipe opens near where Steppach's car was found.
Lori, I just can't even find the words to tell you how sorry I am for your loss. Now, you say that she was found very near her car,
yes,
right, where her car was.
She was killed and put in a drainage pipe 60 feet from her car.
It had been how long between when she went missing and when she was found exactly?
Almost 3 years.
She was identified how?
Through her jewelry.
And what have you done with her jewelry?
I have it on. He came in and said they found skeleton, but there's still little something in the back of your head that missing. You're looking, you know, people are looking, but that day when they come and say they found her, that's a whole different state of mind. I miss her.
The discovery of Ebby's body raised more questions than it answered. How did she get inside this drain pipe? Did she put herself there? And if not, who did? Well, Lori is here again, as well as new guests with new information they claim could point us in the right direction to solving this case once and for all. Let's hear from Lori first, who says she will never, ever give up on her daughter's case.
Since the last time I was on the Dr. Phil show, all leads had been exhausted.
Tommy Hudson, Ebby's detective, left Little Rock Police Department, and we were given a new detective who recently told me Ebby put herself in the drain. After he told me that, I was speechless. That's insane. That's when I just said, I'm done. I just closed the book on getting any more help with the Little Rock Police Department. He didn't say it was a cold case. It's going to take someone coming forward because it's been investigated as much as it will be. People ask me if I believe we'll find Ebby's killer. I used to say, yes, absolutely. Well, I got the best they can get me. Now I'm on my own. Dr. Phil has been very gracious in giving us exposure for Ebby's case. Dr. Phil is keeping Ebby's story alive.
Well, Lori joins me now from Little Rock, Arkansas, virtually. Lori, it's good to talk to you again.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for keeping Ebby's story out there.
Well, I'm committed to doing that, and this is the third time that we've met. What has changed since the last time you were here back in 2018?
I've gotten nowhere. I'm back at square one.
How do they explain that this body could be 60 feet from her car and not be found for 2.5 years?
That the first team of detectives didn't tell the truth about searching the pipe.
So they just didn't look.
No, they didn't look.
In Lori's unwavering fight to find out who caused her daughter's tragic death, Lori enlisted the help of private investigator Catherine Townsend, who, as you are about to see, went above and beyond the call of duty to try and crack this case. Take a look.
I'm here in Little Rock, Arkansas, investigating the mysterious death of Ebby Steppach. We're in Shalamont Park, and this is where Ebby's car was found. This is a picture of her 2003 silver Volkswagen Passat. What's interesting about the car is the fact that it was found with the key turned all the way in the ignition, as if it had been left running. It was out of gas. All of her personal items were in the car. I'm pulling up to the parking space where Ebby's car was found. I find it interesting that her car was all the way in the back of the parking lot because it's in a spot that you can't see from the street. I think it's significant that the car was backed into the space. Even if someone pulled into the parking lot, anything that you're doing is going to be hidden.
Police had said that the remains were skeletal and that the pipe opens near where Steppach's car was found.
Police now seem to be suggesting that she somehow crawled down there on her own, and that is not where the evidence that we have found has led us at all. I think it's really important to go down into that hole because I want people to understand how difficult it would be for someone her size and in her condition. She would have had to lift this manhole cover herself, and this is hard. It's super heavy. But she would then have to crawl down here and while balancing herself on a ladder, pull this back over. These rungs are very far apart. And they're hard to see even in broad daylight, by the way. Once you get down here, you can see that there's this pipe, this really small pipe, just a few inches wide, down at the bottom. The longer I spend here, the more I realize that it would have been basically impossible for Ebby to get down here on her own. Ebby's body was found down this drain pipe. She was over 70 feet in there. To demonstrate how absurd the idea is that she would have gone down there on her own, I'm actually gonna crawl down in there. It angles down in here, and it's so tight that if I go any farther, my arms, I'm not gonna be able to get out of here. Oh my God, it's very hard to back out. She would have had to have been all the way in the pipe because when they looked down in the manhole, they lifted the cover and they didn't see her down here. After being down there, I can say even more definitively, I think there was no way that she could have gotten down there herself. I believe that this is a solvable case. After spending a lot of time in this park, I'm more convinced than ever that the person who did this to Ebby had to be someone who was very familiar with this area and knew it really well. It feels to me like something that wasn't planned, like perhaps a crime of opportunity. Like someone saw her in her vulnerable state, took advantage of her, did something bad to her, and then just made sort of a panicked attempt to cover it up. I think that there is definitely one, possibly multiple people of interest here, and we need to find out why the stories aren't matching.
Well, Catherine, first, thank you for being here, and thank you for what you're doing with Lori and the family and digging into this.
Thank you for having me. I saw the appearances on drphil both times that, Lori and Michael were on, and I remember thinking in 2018, okay, maybe now they're finally going to get some answers. And then when they didn't, I just thought, we're going to see what we can do. And I think that there are a lot of questions that need to be answered about this case.
Well, there certainly are. What is the most compelling piece of new evidence you've uncovered?
Well, the most compelling piece of new evidence would be the fact that there is absolutely no way, in my opinion, that she could have gotten down there by herself. To get into that hole, you have to lift an extremely heavy manhole cover. And this would have been at night, by the way.
Right.
And then she would have had to crawl down there and then somehow pull the extremely heavy manhole cover back over herself, which is almost impossible to do.
Is this at all anything Ebby would do?
No, she would never do that.
Could Ebby's internet searches in the days leading up to her death shed new light on this case? We're going to be looking into that. Plus, we'll be speaking to the man Ebby was dating right up until she died to see what information he has on her last movements when we come back.
She was scared. She didn't seem normal. She didn't seem okay.
When did she come over to see you?
Right after the party, she messaged me and said that somebody had, raped her.
And later, why have you chosen now to speak out?
I wanted to speak in the beginning, but the authorities said, would you give us a chance to do our job? And so I honored that. I just remained quiet all this time.
Tomorrow.
You've been to the hospital 168 times?
I don't know what's going on with my body.
She has crippling anxiety.
He said, I guarantee you I'm going to pass out walking to the stage.
And two men
Caitlin says she trusts her best friend Joe more than her husband.
taking care of her.
How often do you spend the night on the couch?
5-6 times a week.
This is a weird dynamic here.
That's tomorrow. Then on Monday, she says her lie sent her husband to prison.
If the judge believes you now, then you're guilty of filing a false police report, lying under oath, which could be considered perjury.
That's Monday.
After Ebby went missing, her family, of course, was scouring her social media because Ebby lived on social media. Lori hired an IT guy to go through everything with her. Apparently, the IT guy discovered that in the days, weeks after Ebby went missing, someone had logged in to one of her social media accounts. Lori also told me that the person who logged in was the guy who Ebby had been dating on and off. I was able to get access to some of Ebby's Google searches on the last weekend she was alive. I've driven the route a lot. I've driven to all the different addresses. Some of them we can trace to people she knew. But I think understanding her pattern of life is really crucial to figuring out what happened to her.
Catherine, you created a timeline you believe is a more accurate depiction of Ebby's online behavior in the days up until her death. And I want to take a look at that. So on Friday, October 23rd at 9:27 a.m., she Googles McDonald's on Markham. And at 11:22, Googles a friend's address.
Right.
And then at 11:22, an address near her father's home. So what do you make of those first three entries?
Well, she was not living at home. She had her parents had basically said, if you can't follow our rules, then you need to move out. So she had moved out. She was living largely, she would stay with different friends' houses. She was couch surfing. So she would Google the address where she was going to go, and then she would drive there. And this was her pattern. All we've heard since the beginning of this case is the narrative about Friday night when she went to a party. And we've heard she was gang raped by 4 men and they videotaped it. That was her concern, that there might be a video. And until recently, the police had been saying to Lori that they knew where Ebby was on Saturday night and that she was safe. But now they're saying, we don't know where she was on Saturday night.
Well, here's what we know about Saturday at 2 a.m., she Googles a friend's address, and then she Googles American Horror Story at almost noon. And then she Googles, I was recorded without my consent. Right after that, she Googles how to file a police report.
Yeah, on Saturday afternoon, her mindset was she was concerned something might have happened that was without her consent. She was figuring out how to report what was rape. She was figuring out how to report it to the police department, and she called the police department.
Now, my next guest says he had been dating Ebby right up to her death in October 2015. Now, he says he has never spoken publicly about Ebby before until now. Now, please welcome Eric, who joins us virtually from Cincinnati, Ohio. So, Eric, thank you so much for agreeing to talk about this.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, and I'm very, very curious. Why have you chosen to speak publicly about Ebby now and here?
It's a part of my life. It's not going away. It happened. And I really want answers. So at this point, I at least have to try to help.
When was the last time that you spoke with Ebby?
I believe her brother called me after he couldn't get in contact with her on the 25th. And then I called her, and she answered for a second. That was the last time I talked to her.
Okay, and what was her state of mind?
She was scared. She didn't seem normal. She didn't seem okay.
So you were concerned when you talked to her that she wasn't herself?
I was concerned because of, she came over frantic. She wasn't happy. She wasn't her normal self when she came over, but she also wasn't impaired then. But then when I heard her voice on the phone, I could immediately tell that it was not okay.
Okay, you say when she came over. When did she come over to you, to see you?
Actually, I believe it was right after the party. I remember her messaging me late at night and said that somebody had, raped her. I told her, come over. I'm not, we were upset with each other. It was a lot of stuff going on around that point. So we weren't necessarily on the best terms. But she always knew that I always had her back. So whenever anything happened, if she just if she didn't have anywhere to stay, she knew she could, come over, and I had her back. So she came over, and I got her in contact with some family, and I believe that's, it had to be Friday night, I believe, because Saturday is when she was supposed to go meet all her family and stuff.
When she came to see you, how did she look physically?
She just looked a little distressed. She didn't really want to talk about the situation, and I wasn't trying to, make her relive it initially. I had a sister that went through certain things like that, so I know, that that's not something that you immediately want to just, talk about. She really just needed a safe space, so I let her sleep in my sister's bed.
Did she look disheveled? Her clothing, was her hair messed up? Did she look different than normal?
It was, 2 a.m. and she was stressed out. She had cried clearly, so I knew something happened. I just didn't, want to press the situation.
Uh-huh. Did you know the individual that she was suspect had perhaps videotaped her?
Yes. At the time, I didn't until I got back to school. That night, she wouldn't tell me who it was.
And when did she leave?
I believe she left that morning.
And when she left, was it your opinion that she was clear-minded enough to drive and calm down enough to drive her car?
When she left, I honestly thought she was going to go straight to the police. Of course, go, see her family and go straight to the police. I didn't know it was going to be a whole day type deal where she didn't. I thought she went to the police Saturday, and I didn't hear from her. Her phone was off, and I just figured, she was with family all Saturday.
What do you think happened to her?
They should for sure go to jail. It just killed me that I couldn't do anything about it. It just really broke me to my core.
May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm here to say that your mental health matters, and it matters especially to me. Listen, we are living in extraordinary times, navigating through a global pandemic that has created isolation, stress, and anxiety for many, including young children. I want you to know it's okay to say you are not okay, that you need help. Don't suffer in silence. You are not alone. Help is available. Maybe that help is a medical professional, someone at your church, or even a trusted friend or family member. someone who can help point you in the right direction. As I often say, you cannot change what you don't acknowledge. If you want peace, if you want health, if you want well-being for you, those you love, and those who love you, you must take care of yourself. Go to drphil.com where I will have a list of resources if you or someone you know is struggling with something you need help with. Thank you.
I mean, honestly, I didn't know that they said she put herself in a drainage pipe. That doesn't make sense. I'm a huge person, and like I've tried, like, you know, drop something down a drainage pipe, you know, playing or something, and then had to like try to pick a manhole up. That is not easy. I know she couldn't have done that, and not only that, she couldn't have put it back over. Like, it's just, that story doesn't make sense. I honestly believe that she might have, you know, went to go see some friends. Ebby had a couple friends. They might have gave her something, and she had a bad reaction, and like they tried to, you know, leave and come back and realize she was gone. And I feel like that's honestly what happened. And like they probably put her down there, trying to hide the evidence, you know?
You said that maybe she OD'd and with some people, and instead of calling an ambulance or police, that they let her die and dumped her body. If that happened, what do you think should happen to those people?
I mean, honestly, they could have called the police and left. She didn't deserve that. She, like, you know, everybody makes mistakes, but she was a good person. They should for sure go to jail. Like, that's not a question. Like, and like, I don't want to say like I haven't thought about doing something myself. You know, it kind of made me feel helpless for years. It just really like broke me to my core. So at this point, it's just like it's something that I had to, you know, let go. I can't just hold on to anger like that. Like, it was causing problems in my life, actually. So I had to, you know, let that go. So now I just want justice for her. I want this to be closed so, you know, her mom can sleep at night. You know, Ebby's soul can rest, you know?
Mm-hmm. And when you talked to her later that day and she was clearly disoriented, did you think about having her back again and trying to find her, asking her to come back over, staying put to go, I'll come get you?
Yes, I told, like, her brother, like me and her brother were saying, I was like, can you, you know, like he said he was going to take care of it. So at the time, like, I didn't have a vehicle, so I couldn't just go get her. You know, I lived miles away. Like, you know, it was, like, not something I could, you know, run and save her. Like, and that just, like, ever since then, like, after that moment when, like, I didn't talk to her again, like, it just killed me because I wish there was something. I wish she would have just stayed at my house or something till her brother got hurt, you know, till her brother came there. So I just, that way I would have known, you know?
Yeah. Well, you're being very, very helpful. And I have some more questions for Eric. Plus, if Ebby's death was a homicide, could her killer be a resident of the town she grew up in? A former detective on the case says yes. And I'll ask if you have some questions for Eric when we come back. We'll be right back.
Little Rock Police asked cold case detective Tommy Hudson to look into it.
Can you share how she died?
No, I can't.
You do know, though.
I have an idea.
Do you have a person of interest or a suspect? Anytime I start an investigation, I always want to base myself in the area where the crime happened. The most crucial finding in the case was the body, and that's why I think Tommy Hudson, the detective work that he did, was so important. Now you have a crime scene, and the place where the body was found tells you a lot about the person who could have done it. The person who, in my opinion, put it there would have had to be familiar with this area. This neighborhood is an affluent neighborhood. It strikes me that in this area, anyone who wasn't from around here, who was out of place, would be pretty noticeable.
Well, I'm talking about the mysterious 2015 death of 18-year-old Ebby Steppach, whose body was found in a drain pipe 60 feet from her car after a 2.5-year search for her. Now, Ebby's mother, Lori, and private investigator Catherine Townsend both agree that a catalog of blunders by police at the start of the search have resulted in no one knowing who or what contributed to this tragic loss of life. Now, Tommy Hudson is a highly respected detective who was brought onto Ebby's case and was responsible for finding her body in a drain pipe 60 feet from her car. Now, Tommy has since retired, but let's take a look at what he had to say about the case while he was working on it.
There was no sign of Ebby. Police searched the park, claiming to have scoured nearby drainage ditches. Still, nothing. Months passed. At one point, bloodhounds were brought to look. Little Rock police asked cold case detective Tommy Hudson to look into it.
There was some evidence that we were looking at that was found at the scene when she initially disappeared that bothered us.
Detective Hudson went back to the scene at Shalamont Park, where Ebby's car was found. He brought bulldozers and he sent cameras down the drainage pipes.
It was a gut feeling with all of us in the cold case. And then once we did it, it was one of those moments of like, all right, here we go.
Those cameras hit obstructions. Hudson dug up that section of the pipe and found Ebby's body.
Can you share how she died?
No, I can't.
You do know, though.
I have an idea, but I won't tell anybody that right now.
You believe she was dead before she was placed in the pipe.
I don't know that yet.
Why was this not done the first time when she first disappeared?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't know.
What Detective Hudson does know is this is a homicide investigation.
Can you confirm she was with a group of people on the Friday night before her disappearance?
We have information she was.
Do you have a person of interest or a suspect?
Won't comment on that either.
Well, we do have a statement from former Little Rock PD Detective Tommy Hudson. He says, this is not a cold case. This is an ongoing investigation, a homicide. I believe this case will be solved. There is somebody out there that was with Ebby around the time she was put down where we found her that knows something. I believe this person to be a resident of Little Rock, Arkansas. They need to come forward. If they don't come forward, it is only a matter of time before Little Rock PD finds them. Lori, do you have any questions for Eric, who I very much appreciate being forthcoming and talking to us today?
I do too. I love Eric.
I love you too, Lori. I promise.
Eric, you said that when you did talk to Ebby, she was scared.
She just wasn't her normal self. I mean, you knew Ebby, like you knew how happy of a person she was, like, and it was just like it wasn't there anymore. Like that was gone, and it was like not even a sense of urgency, just like she knew that something was about to happen. Like she almost knew that she wasn't going to be okay.
Did she hang out at that park?
I actually hung out with her at that park before, but that was one of her happy spaces. So like, it even killed me that she was found there. Like, she would go there just to think sometimes. Like, she would call me from there sometimes, just like late at night. You know, like she'd just be there, parked there. That was always, before she like stopped living at her house or anything like that, she was always there. That's one of the more safer spaces in Little Rock, like, honestly.
Can I ask, so when you guys were in the park, did people ever open up the manhole cover and hang out down there?
Never. That's not a thing.
All right, we're going to take a break and add someone to this conversation when we come back. Ebby's best friend, who says in the lead up to her 2015 disappearance, Ebby did something she would never usually do. She lied. We'll find out what she lied about when we come back.
That Sunday, when Ebby was supposed to be coming to meet me for this church event, she never showed up. It was very strange for her to not show up because anytime that we had plans, she was always very transparent with me. If something came up, hey, I can't make it. And this time I had gotten no response from her.
You've been to the hospital 168 times?
I don't know what's going on with my body.
She has crippling anxiety.
You said, I guarantee you I'm going to pass out walking to the stage.
And two men
Caitlin says she trusts her best friend Joe more than her husband.
taking care of her.
How often do you spend the night on the couch?
5-6 times a week.
This is a weird dynamic here.
That's tomorrow. Then on Monday, she says her lie sent her husband to prison.
If the judge believes you now, then you're guilty of filing a false police report, lying under oath, which could be considered perjury.
That's Monday.
Well, I've been devoting the entire hour to raising awareness about a case very close to my heart, the suspected homicide of 18-year-old Ebby Steppach, who went missing in 2015 and whose skeletal remains were found in a drainage pipe 2.5 years later. Ebby's best friend, Tori, joins us next, and she says that she's still haunted by the void Ebby has left in her life.
I met Ebby when I was in 8th grade. The last time I saw Ebby was on the Friday before she went missing. The last conversation that I had with her was on that Friday evening when she told me that she was going to stay with a friend. She did not disclose with who, that she would be back in time for a church event that we had coming up on Sunday. Nothing she said raised any red flags or concern. Ebby would run away from home at times, but she would always come spend the night with friends or family. Ebby was a bit more of a private person with me when it came down to who else she was hanging out with. I can only assume that Ebby knew these people from these parties that she had been attending, and I know that she smoked weed at these parties, but I know nothing else. That Sunday, when Ebby was supposed to be coming to meet me for this church event, she never showed up. It was very strange for her to not show up because anytime that we had plans, she was always very transparent with me with if something came up, hey, I can't make it. And this time I had gotten no response from her. I know that she's in a better place and I miss her, and I just hate the way that she had to leave this world.
Well, Tori, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You say she was a very reliable friend.
Yes, she was not the type of person to ever, cancel plans, or if she did, she would always say, hey, something came up, I can't make it. Until
the very end. And she started showing a little bit different behavior. You said that she kind of dramatized and, in fact, lied about something with her stepdad.
Yes, sir. She called me and said, hey, some things happened at home. Is there any way I can come over and talk to you for a little bit? I said, yeah, of course. My door's always open to you. So she comes over and I said, hey, what happened? And she goes, well, Michael, my stepdad, pushed me down some stairs at home. And, I'm thinking, well, are you hurt? Or kind of what happened, what caused this. And that was when she told me that they had told her basically that if she was going to drink or smoke weed or anything like that, that she couldn't live in their house. Mm-hmm. Later on, I actually found out from her mom, Laurie, that was not true. Mm-hmm. So,
did you ever confront her with that?
I never got the chance to.
Do you have a theory about what happened to her?
I have so many scenarios that just roll through my head every time that I think about Ebby and the events leading up to what happened, that it's impossible for me to say, I think this one specific scenario happened.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think she went to the park and crawled inside that sewer pipe?
Absolutely not.
Ebby's grandmother will be here in her first ever interview since her granddaughter's death. She'll reveal why she has chosen now to speak out. That's next.
About 2 weeks ago, I received a very hurtful prank phone call. An adolescent female voice said, Grandma, help me, please. I have no idea whose rule book allows them to do something so cruel.
Ebby's paternal grandmother, Debbie, says that her world stopped the day she learned of her granddaughter's passing, and only now has she found the strength to speak out publicly for the first time.
Ebby was a unique individual. From the time she was born, she was full of joy. She had many friends, In our family, I'm kind of the fixer and the record keeper. Just a few months after Ebby disappeared is when I decided to make this timeline. This is where it first began, the timeline. This is her first poster they put up, the first flyer. I may be old-fashioned and old in age, but I became a kind of a sleuth on social media. This down here is the week after October 25th and the 30th when she disappeared and when her car was found. And all in between are things that I had heard from rumor or I actually knew for a fact where she was or who she was with. October 4th through 8th, before she disappeared, she stayed with us for 4 days. But during these 4 days, she was very different. I could tell she was troubled. She was more distant. She said, "Grandma, would you braid my hair like you used to when I was a little girl?" And I said, "Oh, sure, Ebby." And I began to French braid her hair. I didn't realize it was the last time I would ever touch her. About 2 weeks ago, I received a very hurtful prank phone call. An adolescent female voice said, "Grandma, help me, please. I'm in trouble. I don't know where I am." I have no idea whose rule book allows them to do something so cruel. It's been 6 years since my granddaughter was killed. It's very distressing knowing that the person or persons who caused this death of my granddaughter are walking the streets. I'm hoping drphil can keep her in the public eye. I feel like something good is going to come from this.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm so sorry for your loss. Why have you chosen now to speak out?
I wanted to speak in the beginning, but the law enforcement, the authorities said, "Would you give us a chance to do our job?" And so, don't be talking about it because you don't know who's out there. And so I honored that. I didn't want to muddy the waters with, well, here's her mother and here's her father and here's friends. And so I just remained quiet all this time.
Mm-hmm. And now it seems like the impetus for this investigation has really become private.
Yes.
It's become family driving this instead of law enforcement driving this. After all that you've put together, what's the most glaring inconsistency you think needs to be focused on in this case at this point?
I think the most glaring discrepancy, as you say, at this point now is that it seems like, and not Tommy Hudson, but like the Little Rock authorities have just sort of given up and her name isn't spoken. And I haven't even visited with the newest detective because the last thing I heard was about, well, they just kind of, Ebby put herself down there. They've kind of, figured that. And you just want to scream. There's no way little Ebby did that.
But when we come back, I'm going to be sharing my final thoughts on this mysterious and tragic case because it is not over until answers are found. To know what's coming up on Dr. Phil? Visit our website and subscribe to our newsletter. You'll get weekly updates, live strategies, and exclusive video that you won't find anywhere else. Plus, on drphil.com, you can see sneak previews of upcoming shows. Log on today. What I want to say is this. Somebody was there. Somebody knows something. Somebody, and maybe it was 3 or 4 people, and if you were one of those 3 or 4 people and you had nothing directly to do with this, but you know somebody that did,
please,
then it's really endemic upon you to step forward and give this family peace. You've got information, come forward and share it. You can do it anonymously. You don't have to put yourself in the forefront of this, but somebody knows something, because one thing that I feel strongly that I can conclude here is that she did not put herself down in that drain pipe, which means somebody else did. And let me tell you, there are times in life when you have the opportunity to do the right thing. Let this be one of them.
Yes.
Let this be one of those times when you say, you know what, I can not do something and just go on with my life and pretend that I don't know. Or you can say, This is one of those times where I can step up and have the courage to do the right thing, even if you do it anonymously. You know, integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking and nobody's listening. Well, maybe this is your time to find out who you are. And maybe you were just driving by and you saw something that you didn't know at the time meant anything. But hearing all of this, you go, wow, this could mean something. Then report that. It could be that little piece of the jigsaw puzzle that brings it all together. And to report information that might assist in solving the death of Ebby Steppach, just call the tip line created by her family at 678-632-6159. That's 678-632-6159. And if you don't have a pen to write that down right now, just go to drphil.com and it will be right there, really big and bright on the home page. Or you can call the Little Rock Police Department at 501-371-4605 and press 7. That too will be on the homepage. I want to thank all of my guests today. For more information.
Hello, xin chào quý vị và các bạn đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình nhé. Hôm nay mình sẽ đi nhặt vỏ sò các bạn. Vỏ sò bữa hôm bị đánh đổ đây này. Chỗ cái tảng đá này nó rất nhiều vỏ sò. Mình sẽ nhặt cái vỏ sò này về để mình sẽ kiểu như mình sẽ làm trang trí một cái gì đó. Đó. Mình sẽ lấy cái vỏ sò này các bạn này. Rất là nhiều vỏ sò ở đây luôn. Bữa hôm mình đánh đổ đó các bạn. Đó. Đây là những cái vỏ sò mình sẽ nhặt đem về để sử dụng các bạn nhá. Rất là nhiều. Bạn nhìn thấy không? Đây. Đây là những chiếc vỏ sò kiểu sò điệp, sò điệp hay sò gì các bạn. Đó. Sẽ ngồi đây và nhặt đấy các bạn nhá. Xong mình sẽ rất là nhiều ý tưởng dành cho con sò này các bạn nhé. Đó, các bạn nhìn thấy không? Rất là nhiều, nó nằm ở trên mặt đất rất là nhiều luôn. Mình sẽ dùng cái này để nát nó, mình khoan cái con ốc ở đây. Sẽ lấy luôn ha. Mình sẽ nhặt mấy con ốc về để sử dụng vào mục đích là đó, rất là nhiều luôn. Nãy giờ mình nhặt được rất là nhiều luôn các bạn. Đó, những con ốc này, những vỏ sò này rất là đã mắt. Các bạn nhìn rất là to luôn này. Rất là nhiều cái vỏ sò mình nè. Cái vỏ sò này nhé, mình sẽ nhặt xong rồi mình sẽ đem về và mình sẽ sử dụng nó một cách thật là hiệu quả. Trời nó khá là nắng hay sao nó sói vô đây. Nhìn không? Mình sẽ quay sát để các bạn nhìn. Cuộc này còn rất là nhiều các bạn. xòa này rất là đẹp mà. Rất là đẹp đúng không các bạn? Mình sẽ thiết kế một cái vỏ xòa thật là đẹp cho các bạn xem. Đó, mình sẽ sử dụng cái xòa như thế này các bạn này. Đây, chắc lắm chứ không pha nổi. Xíu nữa mình sẽ lấy cái sợi chỉ. Cái này đây có cái băng, có cái keo á, dính vô và làm rất là nhiều thứ ạ. Đó, tuyệt vời rồi. Nhiều luôn. Mình sẽ sấy đi các bạn nhá. Đó. Video mình đến đây là kết thúc. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn ở những video clip tiếp theo. Xin chào.